Shifting gears now to our other big story today. Deliberations continued in the trial of the man accused of killing Samantha Woll.
The jury has still not reached a verdict, and on Friday they indicated to the judge that they were deadlocked on some charges. Gino Vici joins us from the Frank Murphy Hall of Justice with the latest, including what could happen if deliberations stretch on.
Yes, that's correct. In the third full day of deliberations, still no verdict.
Remember, last week the jury requested to see transcripts of testimony and announced they were deadlocked, which prompted Judge Margaret Van Houten to issue deadlocked instructions. This was a very long trial, and typically the longer the trial, the longer the judge will allow deliberations. However, and again, with the jury being deadlocked and announcing it last week, there could very well be a time limit imposed by the judge, especially if no progress is made in these deliberations. Inside the courtroom today, a few friends of Samantha Woll, the defense remained right outside the courtroom while the jury presumably remained deadlocked. And again, Samantha Woll was found stabbed to death outside her Lafayette Park condo in October of last year. The man on trial, Michael Jackson Bolanos, testified in his own defense, stating he came across her body that night and checked for a pulse, and now he finds himself facing life in prison. Will he be innocent, or will he be found not guilty, or will there be a hung jury?
And we won't find out today. That's because the jury was sent home, but not before juror number 3 was dismissed because of a scheduling conflict. An alternate will replace that juror, and they'll be back here tomorrow morning. In downtown Detroit, Gino Vici, CBS News, Detroit.
Thank you, Gino, for that report. And as we wait for a verdict, we're joined once again by criminal defense attorney and former federal prosecutor Rick Convertino. Rick, thanks so much for being here. So we've been following this very closely. What does now bringing in an alternate juror mean for this case?
Well, an alternate juror now means that one of the jurors that was deliberating for the last 2 days is was dismissed by Judge Van Houten today for previous travel conflict that won't allow them to continue to deliberate. So an alternate has been replaced. It's a male. He's coming on, and now the deliberations must start anew. So it's probably a good thing. It probably will assist in the logjam and seeing that if they can come to a unanimous verdict at this point.
And if they stay in that place of feeling deadlocked, not able to come to an agreement, how long can this stretch on before some decision is made?
It's up to the judge's discretion. It can go on, certainly it'll go on at least another day or so because of the new juror being infused into the mix. And that juror will have to have the deliberations start fresh. So all of the arguments that were made in the previous jury deliberations will start again, and this juror's input will be taken into consideration. Now, what is an interesting thing, I'm not sure, I tried to find the previous notes to see the notes that were sent out regarding the impasse. And I don't know if the jurors are impassed on all of the counts or some of the counts. Or some of the counts here, like the lying to the law enforcement officer, that's a count. That's pretty easy since the defendant himself admitted to lying to law enforcement during the course of the investigation and the interrogation. So that's an easy thing. So maybe they have agreed on some counts and not on others. I'm not quite sure, but regardless, that'll start new again tomorrow morning with the new juror involved.
And based on what you've seen from this case and the evidence presented that you said is largely circumstantial evidence, not direct evidence placing this person at the scene, and considering this deadlock within the jury till now, how do you think this could end up?
I think it's going to end up in a not guilty verdict. I said that earlier, and I still think so. I think that at least on the major counts. Now, whether they come back on some of the lesser included counts, I could very well see a guilty verdict come back on the lying to the officers during the course of the investigation. That charge fairly inconsequential. But to the murder, I do think that it's going to be a not guilty count.
Yeah, and I'd imagine there's a lot of frustration for that jury, too. They've had to sit through the trial, though it's moved relatively quickly, but to be bringing in these alternates and starting over, that's a lot to have to continue to go through, right?
It is, yeah, and they can be frustrated and upset. You're dealing with people who've been opposed to your point of view for a couple of days now, which is probably about at this point, I would guess maybe 15, 17 hours, something like that they've been trying to deliberate. And so that gets magnified in the course of a closed environment, and tempers can get heated. And so hopefully that this will be a fresh start with a new juror. They'll have to convince him that of their both attendant positions, and he may have some very important things to say that would break the logjam either way.
And I can't help but in the situation to continue to think about Samantha Woll's family and the sense that, if this is a not guilty verdict, if this isn't the guy, then where is justice?
Yeah, it's got to be excruciating and agonizing. And, it's hard for me to fathom that anyone who sat through this trial does not see the inherent reasonable doubt that's infused throughout the whole thing. There's no direct evidence at all in the case. The case is solely a circumstantial case. And the judge, as I mentioned earlier, the judge will instruct the jurors that circumstantial evidence and direct evidence are equally as important and have equal weight in the consideration. So that's not so much the issue, but there's not one scratch of evidence that puts the defendant inside the house. That's where the murder occurred. There's a footprint that they pulled from inside the house, a bloody footprint that doesn't match the defendant's. Whose is that? There was no evidence of the defendant having a knife at the time, or if he did have a knife, the one that they recovered had absolutely no evidentiary value toward this.
And these are likely the things that the jury are conflicted
I'm certain they
upon.
are.
All right, well, Rick Convertino, thank you always for
Thanks
your
both.
insight.
Thanks both of you.